Okay, good day. Today in our class, this is basic science class, we shall be discussing thermal energy. Thermal energy. First, I need to state here that when you hear anything T-H-E-R, it is something relating to heat. H-E-A-T, heat. So anything thermal energy is energy that is relating to heat. First, let's talk about the definition of thermal energy. Thermal energy is the process of transmitting or transferring heat from one place to another. Like we said, thermal is anything that is relating to heat. So when heat energy is being transferred from one place to another, most probably the heat is going to be transferred from a hot place to a cold place. And when this happens, we said thermal energy has been transmitted or transferred from one place to another. Now, the transfer of heat can be described, or it is often described as heat flow. Just like when you have water flowing, heat as a form of energy also flows. So the term heat flows, as discussed here, is the process by which heat energy is transferred from a hotter part of an object to a cooler part. As we can see, heat flows. So when we say heat flows, we are actually describing the process of thermal energy in which heat energy is transferred from a hotter part of an object to a colder part or a cooler part. Now, in heat flow, we try to look at a specific object and study how heat energy moves from one part of that object to another. That is when we use the term heat flows. And like it has been said, heat often flows from a hot area to a cold one. Now, heat transfer. In science, there are three terms that we use to describe the transfer of heat. So there are three main processes by which heat is transferred. These are: number one, conduction; number two, convection; and number three, radiation. These are the three major processes by which heat is transferred from one place to another. So we shall be looking at each of these process of heat transfer one after the other to see the difference between them. Now the first one we'll be looking at is conduction. Conduction. This is a process by which heat is transferred, usually on a metallic substance. When we say metallic substance, we mean solid substance, most of which looks like iron, as in what is common to us, something like nail. Nail is a metallic substance, and when this metallic substance gets heated, then heat moves or flows through it. So conduction is a process by which heat energy is transferred, usually on a metallic substance, from a part which has become very hot as a result of what? Increased temperature to the other part. Just imagine a situation whereby you put a very long nail into a fire. You are holding one part of this long nail and you inserted the other part into a burning fire. From the start of this experiment, you will notice that it is only the part that is having contact with the fire that will get hot. The part you are holding will still remain the same. But if this continue for a long period of time, you will discover that heat will flow from that part that is hot to the part that you are holding, which is a bit cool from the start. Now, convection is a process by which heat is transferred, usually on a metallic substance, from a part which has become very hot as a result of increased temperature to the other part. Now, this happens as a result of the metallic particles hitting on each other due to increased kinetic energy brought about by the temperature. Kinetic energy is the energy of a moving particles. Now, to understand this, every particles of matter, matter has three states: solid, liquid, and a gas. All these states of matter are made up of tiny or small particles, especially in a metallic matter, something like the iron nail that we have cited as an example. This is a solid matter that is made up of compact particles, particles that are very closely packed together. So when you put a metallic substance making contact with a very hot, something like fire, the particles that make up that metallic substance will start hitting on each other, because the increase in temperature will cause the particles to have more kinetic energy, that is the energy to move around. Now, because they were unable to move around because they are closely packed, the substance, like the nail, becomes very hot. Let's look at the following diagram. This diagram describes conduction. As you can see, this long iron is making contact with the fire. This long iron making contact with the fire. So the metallic particles that are contained in this iron are heating up on each other after gaining enough kinetic energy from the burning fire. This causes these particles to generate heat among themselves, and this heat flows from the part that is making contact with the fire to the other part of the iron material. So that is conduction, one of the ways or processes by which heat energy or thermal energy flows from one part to another. The second one is, before we move to the second one, which is convention, we need to take a look at our conductors. There are certain substances we refer to as conductors because it is not all the substances that can be able to conduct heat energy. So conductors are substances, or a conductor is any substance which exhibits this property or behavior. Which property are we talking about? the property of allowing heat to flow through it. So conductor is any substance which allow heat to flow through it. Mind you, we have different type of conductors. We have electrical conductors and we have heat conductors. As far as this class is concerned, we are talking about heat conductors. So when we say heat conductors, these are substances that allow heat energy to flow through them. Now, these conductors may be referred to as good or bad conductors. That means we have two categories of conductors. Conductors will be good when they allow energy, something like heat energy or electrical energy, to pass through them readily. So we say here that good conductors of heat are substances that allow heat energy to flow through them readily or say easily. So examples of such substances are metals. Generally, all metals are good conductors, either of heat or of electricity. Now the other parts or the other type of conductors, talking about bad conductors. Bad conductors of heat are substances that do not conduct heat readily. Bad conductors of heat are substances that do not conduct heat readily. Liquids and gases are bad conductors of heat. So examples of bad conductors may be something like water, something like alcohol that are liquid, or something like carbon dioxide that are gas. Example of a gas is carbon dioxide, oxygen, and so on. So generally speaking, bad conductors are liquid and gases. But we have an exception here. Mercury, for example, is a metallic liquid. Mercury is a metallic liquid. Hence, it conducts heat readily. So will mercury be classified or considered to be a good conductor or bad conductor? The answer is mercury is a good conductor of heat, even though it is a liquid. Now the second process by which heat energy or thermal energy is transferred is convection. In convection, heat transfer is peculiar with liquid. That is, heat transfer in convection is peculiar with liquid. That means we only study convection of heat through liquid substances. The heat flows from the bottom of a liquid container to the top by the actual movement of the liquid molecules. Imagine a situation whereby you put some water inside a pot and you put the pot on fire, probably on a gas stove, and after some period of time you discover that the whole content of that pot, that is the water, has become very hot. So that means heat has actually flows from the bottom of that liquid container, that is your pot, to the top by the actual movement of the liquid molecules. This way of transfer of heat by movement of liquid molecules is called convection. The transfer of heat by movement of liquid molecules is called convection. Let's look at this diagram to describe our explanation of convection. As you can see, this is heat source, and this is a container containing a liquid substance. So after a period of time, heat energy flows from this part and heats up the bottom of the pot, and as such, the whole content becomes very hot. Okay? Now, the flow of heat through the molecules of liquid is what we call convection. Convection is also a current in a fluid that results from the movement of the liquid molecules. So this is what is displayed by the diagram. The third process by which heat or thermal energy is transferred or transmitted is by radiation. Radiation is a method of heat transfer that does not require material medium for transmission. Radiation is a method of heat transfer that does not require material medium for transmission. You will recall that during conduction, there is a material medium in the metallic substance, something like iron, and that iron must make contact with its source before the heat can be transferred. In convection, there is a contact between the heat source and the bottom of the pot before the heat is transferred. In radiation, there is no need or there is no necessity for a material medium before heat can be transferred. So heat energy is transferred by means of waves. The heat produced by the sun reaches us through this radiation. The sun is a bit far from us. The sun is at several kilometers away from the earth, but still, when the sun rises, we feel the hotness of the sun. This way of feeling the hotness of the sun is by radiation. The temperature at the surface of the sun is over 6,000 degrees Celsius. That means nothing can survive on the surface of the sun. Now, heat can travel in invisible waves from hot places to cooler places. As you can see, we cannot see the heat that is touching us from the sun. So that means heat can travel in invisible waves. It can also travel through vacuum. It can also travel through vacuum. A vacuum is a space in which there is nothing at all, not even air. So you can think of a vacuum as an empty space that is made up of nothing, not even air. In the space, there is a vacuum. There is a vacuum in space between the sun and the earth. The heat from the sun travels through this vacuum to the earth and through the earth to the other objects on the surface of the earth. So it is by means of radiation that everything on the surface of the earth are heated up by the rays of sun traveling through the vacuum. So radiation does not require material medium for transmission. It is the third process or method of heat transfer, and it is the only one that does not require a material medium for the transmission of heat. Look at this diagram. This is firewood burning and generating a lot of heat. Anyone that is a bit distant from this spot where the firewood is burning will experience some kind of heat that is being generated by the firewood through radiation, as we can see from this diagram. Heat traveling through vacuum. The body, the hands, does not need to touch the fire before the effect of the heat is observed. So those are the three methods by which heat, energy, is being transferred: conduction, convection, and radiation. Today, we have been able to put these methods of heat transfer to good use. Your research work will be: what are the applications of the heat transfer methods? Describe 3 applications each for conduction, convection, and radiation. That is, you are going to tell us what are we making use of conduction for on our daily lives. Is there something that we are actually doing on our daily lives that is based on the principle of conduction? So you state 3 for conduction, 3 for convection, and 3 for radiation. Thank you. I'll meet again in the next class.